Hey, everybody. Welcome back to part 2 of this week's episode. Big Jim and Brian are going to pick up where they left off. I split it up because the first half was primarily focused on Brian's 3 big bucks that he shot this year. So we got to hear those stories and some of the background of each of them. So if you haven't listened to the episode I posted earlier this week, make sure to check that out. Definitely an entertaining one. But this half here is a little bit shorter, but the guys Jimmy and Brian get into talking quite a bit about processing wild game. So I thought this would be kind of cool to break off separately so that it got its own attention, and definitely some things that Brian got me thinking about, as I've never discussed this with him before, didn't really know any of the experience or the things that he's done before. So I always think it's cool to hear other people's ideas and what they do, and I definitely think you will enjoy that as well. So thanks again for listening. I appreciate it. If you are not subscribing to the podcast, please do. And if you give us a rating and a review, that's a huge help as well. It's kind of crazy. We're already marching down here the last couple of weeks of deer season, so we've got 1 week left of this weekend left of rifle, and then we're into muzzleloader. So if you haven't filled those tags yet, good luck to you. And I know I'm got some doe tags to fill, so I can keep the pressure on Big Jim for going on that three-peat. I can feel it. It's going to be a good week and a half here, so strap in, folks. We're going to fill the freezer. Keep feeding them. Hello. Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's some deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
When you're
the
275 pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
The Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah.
You know.
He's like,
He's up there slapping it, pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's, I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize.
Remember this?
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors.
The body of this deer, and by the time that I realized it didn't have horns on it, I never had a shot. And I'm like, son of a bitch, that thing was so freaking big. And me and Billy always got this deer taily thing going, and he's won the last 2 years, and I'm like hell bent to beat him. And I'm 5'4" right now, and I'm like, if I could put one more nail in the coffin just to keep it rolling.
Yep.
And I'm like, God, it was standing right in front of me, and I let it run by because I thought it had horns on it.
Well, that's the name of the game if you're going to do it that way,
Yeah.
You don't have a buck tag. It's just it's the way it goes.
That's
Did he shoot a giant one? A giant doe? One of you guys were talking about shooting a big one on your podcast this last time.
Yeah, I mean, it's unverified, so could have been a yipper.
Gotcha.
No, it was a good doe, but he didn't have a scale to put it on, so we're not sure what the weight of it was, but he said it was probably one of the biggest does he's ever shot.
So how is the Bean Hill Meat Cutters, how's that looked this year with everybody trying to socially distance and all that?
So we've been kind of like a fairly small crew, like 6 or 7 of us most of the time. And most of them are not masking, but I threw one on just because the way we are with the infant at home, wanted to make sure we were good. So
yeah. But you guys still got together and cut a bunch of deer?
Yeah, and until I talked to my dad this last week, we cut the rest of our opening week deer. And I talked to my dad before I left. I was like, I'm probably not cutting with you guys the rest of the year because it's getting bad and there's not much for precautions. I mean, I get it and I don't get it. I mean, people are in different spots in their life. If you're, like you and Jess are, you don't have a kid, if you got it, you'd probably have some symptoms. You'd probably be all right after. But we don't know what the hell this does to an infant. You don't know what it does. If your infant gets it, needs to go to NICU, but then, it's one visitor at a time. But what if one of us has COVID, then we can't go in? So, I mean, just the complications are not even worth it. So
Yeah, no, I get it.
I talked to my wife and, she was starting to get uncomfortable with it, and I understand it. And, we made it most of the season, but now it's getting worse. And so the Bean Hill meat cutters are still, they're doing what they can. And last weekend was the biggest group we've had because of opening week. Just more people available on vacation. We did it on a Sunday, so it was a weekend day. People weren't working. But typically our group ran smaller than normal, which was good. Just to keep people, to get the burger done. And, one of my cousins went off to the Navy and he was in basic, so he wasn't there. And my other cousin, he lives in Boston now, so he wasn't there. So it was a fairly tight group, and it was good. We got it done most of the season, but everything looks different this year, and it is what it is. So
sucks.
That's for sure.
I'm getting fed up with it, man. I mean, it's whatever. It's the whole like wearing a mask going into the grocery store. I can handle that, but I'm just
absolutely
sick of all of it in general, and not having a job because of it is probably the biggest thing. But
it freaking wears on you. I mean, I've had fights with my wife over it, and I've gotten to the point where it's just like sometimes you think on the selfish side of things because you're like, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
But then, there is things that you need to be concerned of on a further level of, maybe shit could happen, at home, even not, somebody else that you don't know, but at home shit could happen that you're not thinking of.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm just not, I've had a great season, not willing to risk shit. We've got away with a lot, and I'm just not looking to put any more stress on it from here on out.
Yeah, I hear you. Normally me and my dad would cut deer up together, but I mean, part of it is that I've just had my weekdays are free, I can do it at my convenience, but he hasn't come over to help cut up my deer. I bought this house in June. I got to hang my first deer in the garage, my first 2 deer in the garage, and third one's in there now. I had a friend ask me where you could go to get a deer butchered opening weekend of gun season, and he called 2 places and they weren't taking anymore. And I was like, look, if you'd be interested, I'd love to teach you how to butcher it if you're interested. It's an intimidating thing until you do it, and then it's really not bad. And it adds another element of appreciation to the meals you eat and all that. And he said, absolutely, let's do it. So we planned it, and he brought his deer over, and I showed him how to do it. It took us a few hours. We, right from skinning it to packaging it up. He didn't want to grind. He was going to save the grinds to take somewhere to have sausages made. So he didn't have to go through the grinding process, but I was prepared to do that if he wanted. And when he showed up, he's like, I don't know if I'll hunt again now that I just have doe tags. I don't even know if I'll go out. And at the end of it, he's like, I'm going out tomorrow morning. I want to shoot another deer so that I can butcher it myself. And I felt pretty good about that. It was cool to pass that along. I hope that I can maybe do that with some more people in the future.
Oh yeah, I mean it was funny because I called my dad tonight and just kind of filled him in on where I was at, and we were just wondering plans for the weekend, and we were shooting the shit, and I was telling him, I'm like, yeah, I went and bought a vacuum sealer, and I bought a tub for a burger and shit like that, and just kind of got everything set up at my house the way we got it set up at the shop. And he was like, God, I hope we don't lose you in the future. I'm like, you're not fucking losing me in the future. I'm like, this is temporary. I'm like, there's no way I would get away from the group. It's just, we got to do what we got to do right now. And I'm not really that intimidated by butchering a deer myself. I mean, I've done all parts of it my main role is burgering the shoulders, but I've done roast, I've done burger, or I've done back straps, and it's not a huge deal once you've done it a few times. So
I actually have photo proof here. Let me check the timestamps real quick from my gun deer. It was details.
I told my wife, I was like, I'm kind of excited to just shoot one and whack it up myself and cut it up. I'm like, and then even doing our burger and stuff, because we freeze all our burger, we clean chunk our burger and freeze it, and then grind it up. We have a big grind day every year, and I don't think I'm doing that this year. So I told my dad, I'm going to borrow one of the grinders from you at some point that doesn't get in your guys' way. And I was talking with my wife about doing it, and I was like, it'd be kind of cool to, pre-make burger patties, put them on cookie sheets, freeze them, and then vacuum seal them.
Yep.
And then when you want to have burgers, you just freaking thaw out your package of burgers. Like, how sweet would that be?
Yeah.
So, on the flip side of, this is shitty, we're not doing it the way we normally do it. Maybe it might take more time, but maybe it'd be fun to try some different stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody else I know, it's just him and his wife, and they pre-make all their burgers. They mix things, like they do like blue cheese and something, and then they make one with like cheddar and barbecue sauce, and then they pre-make those patties and vacuum seal them in 2s or 4s so that they can have quick, easy access to meals whenever they need them. They're both, kind of on the run with their jobs and stuff. But I'm pretty straightforward. Back straps, I take them out, cut them into thirds. I usually try to get the shoulder roast, like the blade roast, out of the shoulders, and then take the rest of that for burger. And then sirloin tip roast I leave whole. I leave the bottom round roast whole, the top round, and then the eye round. I separate those out, back seal them separately, and then when it comes time to grind, and then obviously all the loose, picking apart. Sometimes if the rib cage is good, I'll actually take a bone saw and take the ribs off, and I cut them in half so I can package like one side of ribs into 4 pieces. I cut them in half and then cut them in half again. So just so they vac seal easier. But sometimes if the rib cage is shot up, or maybe I, wasn't the cleanest gutting job or whatever,
right.
I'll just take the rib meat out from in between the bones and put it in the grind bin, whatever. And then we just freeze all our grinds, and then me and my dad will get together and make all our sausage and stuff later on, which we didn't do last year. So despite not shooting deer last year, I only shot the one, but I have a bunch of grinds from last year. A buddy of mine moved and offered up some moose meat. So he didn't want it to thaw on his drive. So he gave me like a cooler full of moose meat, and most of it was just big bags of grinds from the moose. So I actually have a bunch of stuff to make grinds this year, and I'm super excited to get into that. Normally we just do summer sausage, and we make some, hot Italian, maybe some breakfast sausage. But I like to make, I like to use andouille sausage a lot. I make a few different things with it, and just last night I made jambalaya, and because I wanted to take the tenderloins out of this dough that I shot and use some andouille sausage and make jambalaya with that. And I can't find andouille sausage in the store. Like, you can find little like individual links, like 4-packs, but like the big like kielbasa ring,
right?
Like, I used to be able to buy andouille sausage like that, and I can't find it anymore. So last night I was like, that's it. I'm buying andouille sausage mix, and I'm making andouille sausage out of the freaking deer this year. And we're gonna probably mess around and do a few new things this year too. My dad bought, he spent like $400 and bought all the meat processing stuff that this guy down in Florida had. He bought it off Facebook Marketplace or something. Had my brother in Florida go pick it up. But it's like an industrial size grinder, like with a foot pedal. Like, nice. We can churn through some meat with that thing, but it's in Florida and it's super heavy. So it's not like we can just have them ship it up here. And of course, COVID hit. So it's still sitting in Florida now. I thought there's no way we won't have that by the time we do sausage after deer season. But I don't know what the hell's going to happen now. I'm getting ready to talk my dad into paying to have that thing shipped up here just so we can power through it.
Yeah,
do it quickly. But
we bought we always ran one grinder. It was a Thunderbird, which is an older style one. And that freaking thing just goes and goes and goes all day long. Never stop it. Just run fine grind through it. We used to run coarse grind and then mix up and then fine grind through it.
Yeah.
And then one of the other guys in our group got hands on another grinder, but it was chain drive. And that goddamn thing, if it hit a frozen chunk, it sounded like that thing was coming apart on the table. And we ran it for 2 years, and my dad was like, you know, having a second grinder is really nice, but it'd be nice to have a really good one. So he went out and bought a Lem. And I don't remember which model it is, but the thing is a freaking animal. Because I do the coarse grind, which is all the semi-frozen thawed shit.
Yep.
And I can just I'll have 6 deer. It'll be 100 and some pounds of burger that I'm coarse grinding, and I will just blow through that shit in like 20 minutes, half hour.
Nice.
The worst part is chunking it up, getting it broke apart so you can send it through the grinder.
Yeah, it's so much nicer though when it's frozen like that.
Oh yeah.
The grind's so much better.
But you can send a completely frozen chunk through that grinder and it'll spit out perfect. I mean, that grinder doesn't even hesitate. So I told my dad I wanted to borrow that, and he was like, yeah, that grinding and that process, and that's going to take you a while. I'm like, have you seen what I do with that grinder in the last couple of years? Like, I'm sitting around waiting for you guys most of the time because that grinder is just blowing through meat.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for you guys to mix and move on to the final grind because I'm blowing people's meat apart like it's nothing. I'm like, if you give me that grinder, I could be done in like a half a day on my own stuff. So
I photo documented that gun buck when I butchered it. I had it hanging with the hide on at 11:14 is when I took the picture. At 11:45, I had all the meat off that thing in my meat lugs, and I took a picture of everything vac sealed at 12:15.
No shit.
I'm sorry, not 12:15. 1:15.
Yeah.
So
you're about
I ripped
2
through
hours on your own.
Yeah. For one deer. And that, I wasn't cutting steaks, and honestly, I didn't skin it all the way down to like the base of the skull and get all the neck meat. I got about halfway down the neck, and the way I can only get deer up. I have this really old wooden block and tackle that I'm hoisting my deer up with in my garage.
Yeah.
And like my bow deer, the nose was like still leaning on the ground. The gun deer, the nose was like 1/8 of an inch off the ground. And so it's like I was laying on the ground like trying to skin the neck of this thing, and I was just like fed up with it. It was midnight.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm done with this. Like I took a bunch of neck meat off. I could have probably spent another 15 minutes and gotten some more meat, and I probably should have in retrospect, but I felt like I picked it pretty clean, and I tried to do a good job with that. I like eating meat all year long, and there's no sense in wasting any of it. But
yeah, so I got 6 last year.
That's a lot of deer.
So no, I got 6 or 7, but I gave one to Rick Milne because he did not have a good year last year. He was like, if anybody can shoot me a doe. So I shot a doe, and honestly, I was like, I need this deer to make my quota for the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then luckily enough, I went to camp one more time and I shot that nice little 8-point, which was big body, small horns, but I got a ton of freaking meat out of that deer. So I gave Rick the doe. So last year, I think I freezered 6 last year. And then, so this year I freezered 6, and we don't grind burger till the first of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't had any burger left for I think I got 1 package left, but it's one of those deals where you've been savoring it. So last month or two, we have not been eating we haven't been doing burgers, tacos, spaghetti. We're out of burger. So it's been, meal prep has not been easy because we've been out of meat as far as the grind goes. So I'm like, I'm not having any qualms about putting 7 or 8 deer in the freezer this year. I don't. And my uncle's like, how the hell do you do that? And I'm like, literally, we don't go to the store. Like, this shit is out of the freezer. Weekly we're using a couple packages. So, so I'd like to get another one myself.
When you're actually using it, if you don't look at it like it's something special, like there's been most of my life, like eating a venison meal was like a special deal because it was venison. But when you can fill your freezer like that, you don't look at it like it's just that's what's for dinner.
Yeah.
And if you grind it up and you can make a bunch of different sausages and whatnot, then you have variety. And
see, that's the thing is variety is like I try to do the majority of my grind. I add pork to the venison, but no seasoning. So I'll just have regular ground burger.
Yeah.
And then whatever we want to make, we can pull it out, season it, make whatever we want to make.
Sure.
Last year, I felt I shot enough deer. I wanted to try some different shit. So I did like 20 or 25 pounds of breakfast sausage, which if you want to talk something phenomenal for breakfast, season it with breakfast sausage or breakfast seasoning with the pork and the venison.
Yeah.
And then when I thaw it out, I put it in a mixing bowl and I put maple syrup and brown sugar in with it. Either brown sugar or cinnamon. You could do it either way.
Yeah.
But mix that shit all up. And I've been doing it in my air fryer. You throw the air fryer on 10 minutes, 400 degrees, flip it once.
Just making little patties and throwing them in there?
So I've even made like the little Jimmy Dean sausage logs. Like they're freaking fantastic.
Yeah.
So run them in the air fryer. I've cooked them on the smoker too, but running them in the air fryer keeps them pretty juicy. So I did that this year. And then normally we do sausage link. But I haven't been a big fan of that in the past because we always did it a certain way. And as I'm getting older and starting to realize you can do shit different ways, I added more pork to my sausage link to make it juicier.
Yeah.
And I did it in a coarser grind instead of a fine grind. And I did hot Italian in that. And those freaking things were unbelievable.
Coarse grind, more pork fat, natural casings.
Yep.
Make sure you don't puncture them.
It was unbelievable.
I've been through that learning curve myself.
Yeah. So it was funny because I was actually talking to my buddy that's they used to have the Honey Falls distillery here. And he was the main chef there. And I was talking to him about doing venison and stuff. And he was like, you're playing with your freaking meat too much. He's like, quit playing with your meat. So he was like giving me some pointers, and I'm like, I'm going to try this shit, I'll give it a whirl. So when we did our sausage, there's a blade that like dices the meat instead of grinds the meat into like the coarse grind. So I used that blade to do up my stuff that I was doing in the casing.
Yeah.
So I did like the chopper to do it, the first coarse grind. So it was not like mushed through, it was chopped up. And then we mixed the pork in, mixed the seasoning in, and then we sent it through the coarse grind. And then we have a sausage stuffer. So you weren't grinding into casing like we used to. We were actually putting the casing on the stuffer and just sending it right in. So our process has got a lot better, and learning how you do it. I mean, we're normally 1 pound of pork per 5 pounds of venison. And to do my sausages, I went 50-50.
Really? I've never gone that much. I've probably been more in the like 1 to 5 range.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it. Like it's a little drier. I'm okay with that. Like as long as it tastes good and it's not like popcorn fart dry. You know what I mean? Like
I cannot remember if I went 2 to 5 in my regular burger or if I went 2 to 5 in my link. I'll have to look back to last year and see how I did it, but one way or the other, I think I might have gone 2 to 5 in my burger and then half and half in my link. And that freaking link was unbelievable. Like it was buying shit out of this. It was better than buying shit out of the store.
Yeah, I get it. I hate. I've gone back and forth. We used to put a lot of fat into our grinds in general. I want to eat venison, and I'm cooking venison for a reason.
Yep.
And so I don't put any fat when I grind my venison. If I'm grinding it into a game bag, into my ground meat bag, and it's going to be for burgers or meatloaf or whatever, it's straight venison, no fat at all. And I'm okay with that. If I'm going to make a burger, I'll add egg and whatever. This I actually made some for. We did a disabled hunt down in Letchworth, and I made burgers. I had like 16 pounds of ground meat. I put 3 pounds of bacon in there, ground it in. It helped. It was fine. Like I'm kind of at ease with doing that. We'll see what we end up doing this year. I still like having just that straight ground venison for whatever.
See, I've only had it done that way once. I took a deer to a butcher over here in the Lakeville area because I was getting married 2 days after I shot the deer, and the temperatures weren't great. My dad was like, "What the fuck were you thinking?" And I was like, "It's fine. I'm gonna send it to the butcher." So I sent it to the butcher, and the burger that he ground up, he didn't add anything to it. And of course, I got through all my burger, and that burger was sitting there, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll try some of this shit from him." And dude, I thought it was terrible.
Yeah, it can be rough if you're gonna make a burger out of it, but like if you're gonna make tacos or you're gonna put it in spaghetti sauce, you don't need fat for that. And I like it personally. You know what I mean? Like you just got to be aware and know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to putting fat in it. I think I'd like to. I think the plan, even after we did it the last time 2 years ago now, because we didn't do it last year, was let's get the fat and put it in there when we're making the sauce. Let's make the sausages really good. Even like when you're doing summer sausage, you got to have some fat in there, or it's just not going to be right. And I kind of came to terms with that. I'm okay with it. That's the fun part about doing this, man. You get to experiment and try different things, and when it works, you stick with it until you're bored with it, and you try something new.
Yeah.
I'm
at the end
excited.
of the day, too, like I can't make hot dogs, and summer sausage is a project. So I got 2 bags of burger in the fridge or in the freezer right now that I'm planning on taking down to Wilson's in Canasteraga.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have hot dogs, summer sausage, snack sticks. I'm gonna have a bunch of that stuff made up.
Yeah. They do a good job.
Yeah, and then the rest. What's crazy is like I've looked at a bunch of different places, and all your stuff from them when you get it back, it's vacuum sealed and good to go.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the other places I've used in the past, you're paying $1 or $2 more a pound, and you got to package it when you get it back.
Yeah.
So I'm like, at the end of the day, I don't care if I got to wait 3-4 months for my meat. I'll take it down there, and when it's done, it's done.
Right. Yeah.
Because I got all the other shit in my freezer to get me by.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of at the. I don't want to. I just want to do it myself because I like the process. It's a process, but doing summer sausage isn't that bad. You got to mix it and let it sit overnight, then you stuff it in. We've got a sausage stuffer now. That's made a big difference in all of our sausage making abilities. It's a lot better that you don't get air in it and stuff like that, and you can be a lot more consistent. But I enjoy the process, and I like being able to tell everybody like, hey, I made that and it tastes good. And if it doesn't taste good, I like to be able to own up to it too, but no, it's never been that bad.
Yeah. No, it's definitely the reason why we do it. I mean, other than having that one deer butchered the day before my wedding, I've never had somebody else butcher my deer before.
Yeah.
So, we've done it all start to finish 100%. And then I've gotten in a little bit here in the past few years. I've gotten into wanting some hot dogs and stuff. And, that stuff I don't mind sending out. But
yeah, I still have to grind up my turkey legs from turkey season. I got all the legs from the turkeys I killed, plus all the legs from the turkeys that Noble killed on our trip out on our little tour there. And then Jess shot a bird, and I think I shot 2. I don't remember, but I got a bunch of legs in my freezer taking up space. I got to go reorganize my freezer, actually.
Yo, I got a project in front of me there because I had to fuck everything right up to get my buck in the freezer when I brought it home, my archery buck, because I haven't figured out who's mounting them yet. And I put that in there, and every deer I brought home since I've just thrown on top of it. So I got a project ahead of me there. I want to pick your brain for a second. You said grind the turkey legs?
Yeah.
So what do you do with that?
I'm just going to grind them up, and I'm going to make burgers out of them, or I'm going to we make we haven't done it so much lately. I did it once when I was out in Indiana. One of the dinners I cooked, I made P.F. Chang's lettuce wraps. It's
so
such
just
an
lettuce?
easy. Have you ever had the lettuce wraps at P.F. Chang's?
It's just lettuce, right?
It's like
just
tacos. Have you had them before?
No, I haven't.
Oh, dude. Do you like Asian food?
It's all right.
Oh, man. Well, you got to try this. P.F. Chang's, they're known for their lettuce wraps. It's an appetizer. Obviously, they give you lettuce, leaves of lettuce, and they give you a bowl of this ground meat mixture, right? And dude, it's freaking awesome. You just spoon a little on a piece of lettuce and eat it. And so going out to deer camp, I knew damn well that I was going to get my balls busted if I brought lettuce wraps. But most everybody at least had heard of them and knew they were good. But I was like, don't worry, guys. I bought 1 head of lettuce, and then I just brought a bag of tortillas, like flour tortillas. And I was like, just make wraps with them. And everybody was like, 1 bite in, I need the recipe. Like we make them weekly. It's a 15-minute ordeal.
Nice.
And so I was like, you know what? Noble was telling me how he ground all his turkey legs the previous year, ground bacon into them, and he said that it's the best burgers he's ever had.
Really?
That's cool. We don't cook a lot of turkey burgers, but I would if I had the meat, and it would be cool just to have bags of ground turkey in the freezer to use for my lettuce wraps or for burgers or whatever. So,
dude, I can't tell you how much you're talking my language right now because I've talked about doing this for so long and I've never done it.
Yeah, so
I would love to try turkey burgers.
Yeah, it's turkey burger is awesome. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass if you've never bought turkey burger. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass to work with. It's very sticky. It gets all over your hands and all over everything, making the patties itself. But they're freaking delicious and they're good for you. So I've always kept the legs off my birds, but I've always ended up putting them in a crock pot, basically braising them, cooking them down, picking the meat off, and then I make turkey pot pies with them.
Yeah.
So many people throw them out. I just think it's ridiculous. There's so much meat there. And it's delicious meat. I don't know why you would waste it. But
I was one of those guys. I always used to throw them out. But the last 2 years, I've kept them, vacuum sealed them, put them in the freezer, and the only thing I thought to do with them was soup. Not soup, but put them in the crock pot, cook them down, get the meat off them.
Yeah.
But I never thought of taking the meat off the legs and grinding it.
Yeah. So Noble said that he brined his meat before he ground it. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to deal with that part of the process. Honestly, in the next couple days, probably Monday, I'm going to take all the turkey legs out of my freezer and throw them in a meat lug and just let them thaw out. I'm going to cut all that meat off the bones. If you've ever, you've cooked your turkey legs in a crock pot before, so when you pull that leg out, it's got all those tendons turned to bone. They look like fish bones, right?
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to pick around them and get all those bones out of there. I asked him about that. Do you cut all of those tendons out when you grind it up? And he said no. He said, the major ones, but and it's just grinding up the shank on a deer. It's the same deal. If you grind it up, it's not it's going to turn. It's not going to be brittle chunks in your ground meat. So I'm gonna do it, man, and see what happens. I'm excited to do it, but I've been excited to do it since May, and they're still in my freezer, and now they're just taking up valuable real estate.
Yep.
Along with some pumpkin pie that I found in there from 3 years ago.
Ooh, I don't know if that's gonna be any good anymore.
Probably not. I put up a bunch of sweet corn this year too. I just blanched a bunch of sweet corn, and some of it I cut off the cob and just put it. I actually used an old can, and I just scooped a can's worth into Ziplocs, and I tried to vac seal them. That doesn't work because there's just too much liquid. But I have a ton of corn in there, and I'm not buying corn for any of my recipes anymore, which is cool, and it's way more delicious. Awesome sweet corn that was grown locally. I got a bunch of regular cobs. I don't know if they'll be quite as crispy as when you buy them fresh in the summertime, but we'll find out. I haven't even taste tested those yet, but I got a bunch of stuff in my freezer that's just taking up space. So I'm looking forward to, like, I got to reorganize that and start chipping away at it and eating it all, you know?
Yeah. Today I was working a little daddy daycare, and while he was taking a nap, I cleaned and kind of remodeled the garage to make it what it needs to be for cutting my next couple of deer here, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one thing I was thinking about. I might need to get this damn deer head out of my freezer because I have one of the stand-up freezers.
Yep.
And it's a big one, but to fit that buck in there, you got to take out like the whole center section.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you're taking up a lot of space in there with that deer.
Normally, I have like everything organized like per cut of meat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, right now, everything's just tossed in there, and I'm like, that's a project. I gotta get that deer head out of there, get that, shelf back in there, and then figure everything out from there. But while I was moving everything around, I noticed all those freaking turkey legs that I have. So
grind them up, man. Grind them up when you get that power grinder.
I think I'm gonna.
I want to know what model it is too. Not that we need one. As soon as we get that one from Florida, we'll be in good shape. But I'm curious which one it is because maybe a new one needs to be purchased here in the future.
I'm sure it's one of the ones you could add the foot pedal to, but we don't have the foot pedal for it. But by the time you run the thing, I don't know. I mean, the foot pedal would be nice, but
you don't need one. I just use.
I mean, if it's on, it's on. If I'm done, I'm done. So
yeah. I only said it had a foot pedal, like to reference that it was like industrial quality, like it's
so
big.
The foot pedal would actually be nice if you're running, a link stuffer off the grinder.
If you're stuffing directly out of the grinder,
that would be super nice.
It would be. It's a good point.
So, yeah. So I mean, what do you got? Your dad and your wife yet to try to get a couple of bucks for, or what?
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I don't know. It's the deer. We don't allow driving on that property until the last. They're gonna be able to start driving on Sunday. So I'm sure we'll try to do some little pushes. But some of these guys, there's couple big groups of guys that have been hunting there a long time, and they got it down to a science. And whether they invite us to join them or we just need to try to capitalize on things that squirt out of their drives or what, I don't feel totally safe being around those guys if they're going to be, shooting every round in their gun every time they see a deer. I don't want to be a part of that. But I think that after Sunday and maybe the following weekend, I think they'll probably give up, and then, late season we can let things settle back down and maybe key in on some deer coming out to fields and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I tell you that late muzzleloader, people taper off and people are out of the woods and deer get back to their feeding patterns, and I mean you can have some serious success in the late season.
Yeah, I noticed. I went out when I was going out Wednesday before I went in the woods. I drove around and I found a group of 7 or 8 does that were feeding in a cut corn field, and they were super tight to this hedgerow. And on the other side of the hedgerow, there's just like maybe 80 yards by 30 yards of goldenrod. And I know damn well those deer are just living in that hole because it's kind of in between a couple houses and people walk by it. I don't even think anybody ever walks in that direction. It's just not a good spot to hunt really, but with a bow, if they're going to step out of that thicket and get into that corn at last light, that might be a real possibility for late season if they hole up in there. But I got a couple little spots that I think I know where they go and hide. I got one spot in particular. I actually got trail cam pictures of that fisher not far from where I shot my buck. I put a trail camera in this little spot that I don't even want to talk about it because if somebody that hunted there heard me describe what it is, they would know where I'm talking about. But it's a sweet little spot that I think everybody just walks by it because I think they just walked by it. And man, I found a deadhead in there, so I know that wounded deer probably go in there and use it as a little safety hole. And I went and sat over it Sunday of opening day and didn't see anything, but it's going to pay off one of these days, you know. Maybe it'll be lazy.
So what's funny is you're talking about that deadhead and kind of finding the honey hole. So my uncle shot a buck. Christ, it was 12, 15 years ago. Giant 6-point, scored like 132 as a 6-point.
Whoa.
We found him. He hit him liver high. And we tracked him on specks of blood and just like dumb luck finding more specks of blood like 100 yards apart, just kind of grid searching. We saw this deer at probably 2:00 in the afternoon. We jumped him off the other hill and he was running down past us. And my uncle was looking at his horns and me and my dad were looking at his body. And my uncle's like, holy shit, did you see the size of that thing? And me and my dad were like, did you not see the hole right behind the shoulder? And he's like, I wasn't looking at the hole behind the shoulder. My dad and I were like, yeah, that thing had, hit just right where you said you did, like right behind the shoulder. And that chest cavity on that deer was so big that what looked like a good hit was further back and a little bit high. And we ended up leaving him, coming back the next day, and we ended up finding him at the end of this goldenrod field at the end of the valley. So that was probably one of the oldest bucks that was ever taken off of our property, and we found him there at the end of that goldenrod field. So fast forward to last Friday, our neighbor shot Frank, buck we were following for years. Guess where we have found him?
Same spot.
Same exact spot.
Did that deer go very far?
Nope. So he was shot. He was shot probably 100 yards from where we found my uncle's buck. And he fell almost in the exact same spot.
So that was his spot. That was his safety area.
Well, it's one of those deals where it's like that spot has got to have something to do with old mature deer.
Yeah.
Because if one went there and died and another one was shot there within 100 yards from there and died right there.
Yeah.
It's not a coincidence.
Yeah, probably not. Is it on your property or is it on the neighbor's property?
It's on the neighbor's property, but we have permission to hunt it all.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
But it was just one of those deals where the guy walked out in the woods, sat on the ground, and
yeah, it was a pretty cool story. I mean,
we're gonna have him on yet to tell the full story, but
that's good.
It's simple, It's almost funny the way it ended. It's not a bad thing. It's not. There's nothing. There's really not sad about it at all. I mean, the way the deer went, perfect, absolutely perfect.
You were saying at the end of your podcast with your dad and your brother there, it was almost better that it was that way than somebody that had been targeting him all season. And,
yeah, like I'm happy to see it happen like that. Like this guy only trophy hunts. Like he's not going out there and shooting a bunch of deer. Like he comes up, he hunts religiously.
That's what I was gonna say. You said he hadn't shot a buck in 4 years. Like that guy passed up deer and waited his turn, and he got it.
Yeah.
That's the way it happens.
Yeah, he was like, I don't shoot deer here. Like he's gone out west for a bunch of hunts. He shot a bunch of big stuff, and he's not big on processing the meat or eating the meat. And he's like, I'm trophy. He was like, he's honest with it. I'm trophy hunting. He's like, if I see a big buck, I'm gonna shoot it. And what's funny is we've gotten to be really good friends with him. And the last 2 deer that he shot, the buck before Frank, my uncle took both the bucks. We butchered the bucks for him. And,
he didn't want the meat.
No, I mean, what's funny is like last season when season was regular, and we were all up at camp, and he would come and stay with us. Like I'd make a pulled venison or something, and he'd eat it, or venison and gravy over pasta, and like he'd be eating this shit, and he'd be like, "Oh my god, this is fantastic!" But then he'd it's a matter of going and doing it yourself. He just not into it. So
Yeah.
we take him pheasant hunting with us, and we do the pheasant, cook the pheasant at camp. He loves the pheasant, but it's like doing it yourself. He's not doing it.
Yeah. The first time I ever went elk hunting was with an outfitter, and there was a guy from somewhere from Washington or something that was in camp with us. And I mean, it was blatantly obvious that everything we were eating in camp was elk meat. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Unless he made you a tuna sandwich or a peanut butter and jelly to take on lunch, everything was elk. And it was so cool how he like utilized leftovers from breakfast. He worked that into the dinner, and anything left over from dinner he worked into breakfast the next day. Like it was such a legit cooking operation. I wish I had taken notes about it because I would love to like replicate it. But this dude that was in camp with us, he shot 100 yards. He was bragging about how he had 10 pins on his sight and he could shoot 100 yards. And the outfitter was like, "You are not shooting 100 yards in an elk." And he did, like the third day in, and he stuck a freaking arrow in this thing and it barely penetrated.
Oh, jeez.
And he was like, "That's it, man. You're done. You're not shooting anymore elk. We told you not to shoot at 100 yards, and you shot 100 yards, and you wounded an animal. You might as well notch your tag. You're done. You can go deer hunt, but you're done." Well, we pulled into the field the next day, or somebody pulled into a field or a meadow and saw that animal running around totally fine. Same exact bull. So the outfitter decided to let him hunt again, and then like the third to last day, that dude shot at a freaking another elk at 100 yards and stuck an arrow in it and lost it. Just to give you an idea of the character we're dealing with. But it was like 6 days into eating at this camp, this guy proclaims that he doesn't eat venison. Laughter erupted. We were like, nobody could believe what this guy was saying. He goes, "Yeah, I don't really like venison that much." The camp chef just turned and looked at him and was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And the guy was like, I'm not trying to offend you. Like, I don't eat that. Like, I might have a burger every now and again, but like, I don't really like venison. He's like, "Dude, you've eaten venison every single meal you've been here." And the guy was, he had nothing to say. He was like, "Oh, okay." Like after that whole episode, we were all kind of like, "Oh, let's just take this guy on a nature hike, get him out of here,"
No, this guy's not like that. I mean, this guy, he's respectful of it. He knows.
He's just not a chef. He's not a cook. He's not into cooking. I get it.
Yeah, he's like, you know what? I know I don't eat the game a lot. I do like the sport, and he's like, the meat doesn't go to waste. He gives it to somebody.
Sure.
And just happens to be that we've gotten to be friends with him. The last 2 deer that he's gotten, we've taken. So
yeah.
There's always somebody in the group that's lacking a deer and needs some meat. And
that's cool.
If he shoots a deer, it's going to be a big one, and somebody will take it. So
you say his son shot? Did his son shoot a buck this year too?
No, not that guy. Doesn't have a kid that hunts.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe did somebody else, one of your other neighbors, shoot a buck or something? You guys were talking about? You don't have to revisit it. You just go back and listen to the damn podcast again.
Well, listen.
I thought you guys were talking about it.
Let me get this in here somehow. I don't know.
Nice.
Screwball, if you want to sponsor the Pert Near Outdoors podcast, you're more than welcome. But that shit's fantastic. And I don't remember his kid or any other kid shooting a buck. Except
no, I thought you guys were just talking when you and your dad and your brother were talking about some other buck got shot on your camp or near your camp or something. You hadn't seen it, or maybe you guys got some pictures. It was a buck you guys had been hunting, I thought.
Maybe it was Adam.
Oh, maybe he shot one on your camp, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it was a little buck. It wasn't that big a buck.
Well, you guys had a pretty good year down there. Awesome.
I just said that to piss him off. I don't care. It was a good buck, good kill. Meat's in the freezer. So yeah, opening morning, both the bucks that I saw, I didn't pass on his because I didn't have a close enough shot on it, but I probably would have passed on it. I saw that buck going down the hill. He shot that. And then the buck that my dad shot, I had at 15 yards standing there wondering what was going on. He smelled me. But I was looking right at him and had the gun in my hands right on the – I had a bow hook screwed in on the side that he was coming in on. I had rested my muzzle loader right on it. And I was like, "You were so dead I wanted you to be." But it was one of those deals where I was savoring my buck tag because I was like,
Because you can.
let's fill the doe tags. I had 3 deer before gun season,
Yeah.
so I was like, let's savor that buck tag and go kill some does. And just happened to be on Thanksgiving that one went running across the field, and it's one of those, like you were saying, your gun buck, you had to make just that split second decision.
Yeah.
And he went running across the field, and all I could see was a horse of a deer with a bunch of horns on his head. And from there, it was, I wouldn't say I did what your buddies or your guys did over at your place, but I shot once, realized I wasn't even close. I shot a second time, felt like I plugged him, and then I had to go up and finish him off. But
You knocked his dick in the dirt with a second shot, right?
yeah, I wasn't unloading the lead, but I shot a few times.
And did I hear it correctly? At 180 yards?
Yeah, that was right.
With a shotgun.
I didn't dump all 5 though. I only took a couple of educated shots.
Yeah, I hear you.
No, that was one of those deals where I was just like, I got caught up in the moment a little bit, saw the horns, and I was like, I got to try it. So I can't. I mean, I hit him perfect center mass, but it was back a little bit. I had to go up, and I ended up just shooting him right in the chest. He was laying on the ground, and I just had to finish him off. I think if I'd have given him 20 minutes, he probably would have been done.
Yeah.
But
that's impressive that it knocked him over, though. You know what I mean? Like,
well, he went
laying there.
He went maybe 60, 80 yards, but he was down, and we were getting done with the drive, and Adam came over the radio, and he's like, "You better get over here and finish this thing off." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, he's still alive." I'm like, "Oh shit!" So I'm down running across plowed field.
Oh boy!
But then I'm like, I don't want to shoot him in the head. I don't want to ruin I didn't know if I was going to mount him at that point.
Yeah.
So it's running through my head. I'm like, I don't want to shoot him in the head.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to shoot him in the back and ruin the back straps. And then, like, the way that I'm coming at him, he's facing the other way. So I'm, like, waving to Adam. I'm like, get out of the way. I'm like, go around the back of him. I'm like, we got him pinned in here. I'm like, go around the back of him. So Adam got around the back of him, and I walked around him and then straight into him. And I was going to let him go for a minute, but he took another breath and was, like, lifting his head up. And I'm like, I ain't watching this shit.
Yep, I know the feeling.
So
definitely, especially when you're like still walking up, like there's a chance he could get up. You need to do you did the right thing.
Yeah,
that's the with that doe the other day. I was like, man, like I'd feel really bad if this thing turned and ran off and I had gut shot it somehow. It wasn't a far shot. I felt really good about my shot, but why was it standing there looking at me? Like if I had just waited 10 seconds, it would have tipped over. But
I almost did that same exact thing with a doe that I shot with my 5.56. I snuck up on this doe for like an hour and a half, and I knew there was a few of them, and there was snow on the ground, and I saw them feeding around below me, and they bedded wide open hardwoods, and I just kept on sneaking, and I finally got to a tree on the crest where I could see her, and I was like, that's the good doe. I'm going to take a shot. She was bedded, and I put it right on her shoulder. I shot. Fucking like 8 deer jumped up. I thought there was 3. And I'm like, I have no idea which one I shot at. And I'm like, I had already racked around. I was ready for the next shot. And I'm like, which one was it? Trying to find it. And this one deer did like a half moon, and it like came up, and it was, I thought when it like made that half moon, I thought I saw like a leg dangling. And I'm like, son of a bitch, I broke its leg. So I like put it right on its chest, and I went to shoot again. And right when I was about to shoot again, she flipped over backwards. And I was like, okay, well, she's done.
It's easy.
Yeah. So, but it was the same thing. I mean, it was, I don't know if I caught hard, but it was definitely a double lung. But people talk calibers so much for deer. I've shot probably 4 or 5 with my 5.56. And you're going to get hemorrhage because it's not a big hole. But that freaking bullet will go through anything. I shot that, you're talking butchering your own deer.
Yeah.
I put that freaking bullet through the main plate of the front shoulder. And the way she was bedded, it came out her kneecap. And the way that it came down, because I was shooting downhill.
Okay.
So I went straight through that main plate of her shoulder. straight through the lungs. I don't know if I caught hard or not, but straight through her lungs and then out the bedded knee. So that was the leg that I saw dangling when she was coming back towards me.
Yeah.
And those deer don't even know I hit them with that gun. Like, there's so much velocity behind that bullet.
Burns through.
I've shot 2 does directly through the lungs, and you go to gut them, and there is no lungs.
Yeah.
It's jello. Like, the speed, it's got to be the speed behind the bullet.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
There's
I know what
nothing
you're
there.
talking about.
I've never seen anything like it.
It's got to be fragmenting as it goes through. You know, there's got to be like petals that come off and they're just ripping through the lungs. It's doing its job. That's the bottom line, you know.
I've never seen anything like it. It's absolutely debilitating.
Speaking of hemorrhaging with my bow deer in Indiana, shooting it head on like that, I was real nervous. Like, there was no exit hole. And I was real nervous about like where that broadhead would be inside. You know, I'm thinking like, I don't see the arrow. I can't actually see an exit hole, but I just don't know. So I was super careful unzipping that thing, and I'm like, I start digging around a little bit. I pull the stomach out, and when I do, I see my shaft like in the body, in the cavity. So I'm like, okay. So I reach down and I tug on it, and it's lodged in the back end somewhere. So I'm like, okay. So I reach up, I cut the esophagus, and as I'm moving the lungs out of the way and get the diaphragm opened up, I can see my fletchings are in the lungs of that deer. And I was like, oh, no shit. So I shoot Full Metal Jackets. I bent that thing to get it out of the cavity so that I could yank it out of the hind quarter. And I did. I yanked it out, and I was like, all right, you know, we'll see how this plays out. You know, I probably ruined a whole bunch of meat on that hind quarter. Dude, that arrow went in the front of that deer, through the lungs, through everything. There was no gut matter, like, because I think it was because the arrow was still there. Like, it definitely cut through the stomach and all that, but like nothing spilled out. Even after I pulled the arrow out, I mean, granted, I had kind of rolled the stomach out as much as I could around the arrow, but long story short, I got that thing hung up and skinned it down, and the arrow had actually poked through the sirloin tip, so like the knee, almost at the knee. It had poked through the meat, but it didn't break skin. But the meat was all torn up. And if you looked at that side of the deer, there was hemorrhaging all the way down to the front of the rib cage on the outside. It was just like that bubbly subcutaneous fascia, the connective tissue stuff. Like, I literally scraped it off with a knife. And when I cut that sirloin tip off, you know, the football roast, some people call it, I only lost like 2 handfuls of meat out of that thing. I bet I didn't lose 2 pounds of meat with that shot. And that arrow went from end to end in that deer, and it ran 50 yards with a broadhead in its knee, basically. So I got lucky, is what I'm saying. Like, that thing, I could have lost a whole hind quarter, but I think it died so quick that there wasn't a chance for like a lot of hemorrhaging in the rest of the hind quarter, and you know, just, I don't know, maybe the clean cut with a broadhead or whatever reason, it was just like sliced meat. There wasn't a whole lot of damage and discolored meat. You know, I basically just cut that wound channel out and still had all the normal roasts and everything that I could package up. It was pretty awesome.
Right. Once you get into gun season, that's where you start to find the hemorrhaging.
Yeah.
And I thought with the 5.56, I thought it's such a small hole that maybe, you know, the blood's not exiting. So I got a 308 after I had the 5.56, and I was like, I'm gonna try this rifle. First one was totally my fault. I shot it directly through both front shoulders at like 25 yards, and you might as well just throw those in the trash. So the second time I went out with it, I was like, gotta be in the ribs, double lung. made a perfect shot, straight through the ribs, behind the shoulders, still hemorrhaged like a bastard. So, from what we have found with what you're hemorrhaging during gun season, as a muzzleloader or a shotgun is going to be your least amount of hemorrhage. Any rifle you use, I think it's got to be in the velocity of the round. It just shockwaves the deer and just sends blood everywhere.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm not looking forward to seeing what my frontal shot did on that doe the other day. I haven't skinned her down yet, so it didn't hit the tenderloins because I ate those the other day last night. So
nice.
Hopefully it just I don't know where it ended up. Hopefully I didn't lose a whole hind quarter though.
Yeah, you never know.
I just didn't want to lose the whole deer. You know what I mean? I feel like I made the right choice. I didn't know. I don't know why I was still standing there. In retrospect, it was like I ran 7 or 8 steps, so it's 5 seconds after my shot. Like I shouldn't have been surprised it was standing there, but in the heat of the moment, I just was like, man, if this thing's wounded, I better shoot it again. So I did.
I mean, if you shoot at an animal and you feel like you hit it and it's still standing there, of course you're gonna want to shoot again. So
yeah, but we'll find out. Probably cut it up tomorrow and find out.
Well, hey, man, it was great jumping on with you, and I'm probably going to wrap her in for the night because I'm going to head down to camp in the morning and try to get another hunt in there and see if I can get a doe on the ground. So,
well, good luck, man. Tell everybody else I said good luck.
Yeah, congratulations on your 3 harvests this year. So, well, 4, but 3 buck harvests so far this year.
$3 is a hell of a year, man.
That is a hell of a year.
I can't complain.
Yeah, definitely. It was funny. You were saying you haven't spent a bunch of time with your old man. He dropped off. I bought a bunch of those calendars, and he dropped them off, and it was funny because it was like shitty, cold, raining out, and it's like he's one of those guys where like I wanted to invite him into the garage and have a beer and hang out, and I'm like, sorry, man, but I can't do it.
Yeah, no doubt.
So we stood outside and shot the shit for a few minutes, but that was right before that weekend in Letchworth you were talking about.
Yeah.
So he was telling me about that. It's really cool what you guys have done down there. So definitely a shitty year, and hopefully next year we'll be all back to normal. So
I hope so, man. I really do.
Well, it's funny because it was a shitty year in that aspect, but in the aspect of what we killed this year.
Yeah.
And we talked about that in our last podcast. It was like maybe there was less fucking around and a little more hunting here this year. But
yeah, exactly. And
it is what it is.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done my turkey tour if it wasn't for COVID. I wouldn't have shot these deer probably, but I'd give them all up to still have my job at the Turkey Federation and not be in the position I'm in right now. But
yeah,
you can look at the bright side. At least I got a full freezer and have some cool stories to tell.
Well, hey, for Pert Near Outdoors, your stories were just fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, 2.5 hours now. This is like, hey, let's make a quick little story about your deer, and here we are. But
thanks.
I appreciate having me on, man. I like listening to your podcasts, and appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on, and we'll keep in touch. And good luck the rest of the season.
You got to start drinking the 12 horses. That's probably a better probability of getting a sponsorship when they're local. Are you too young to know what 12 horse is?
We could try that.
You know what 12 horse is, right?
No, I'm gonna go with no on that
shit. It's a Genesee product, man.
Is it really?
Beer. Yeah, they used to just be a standard. It'd be cream ale, regular, light, and 12 horse. But
see, I know the cream ale.
Dude, you gotta try the 12 horse. It's good. They only do it like in special edition batches now. But
I'll have to go see if I can find me a pack.
I'm sure you can.
Do you get to have any double drop tine IPAs or no?
I have not. Not a big IPA guy. I would drink one to be cordial, but
see, there's a lot of people that don't like IPAs. There's a lot of people that don't like IPAs that said those were pretty good.
Well, I'd try it for sure, but I don't even know where to get one. I'd have to go to that freaking brewery, right? You got some? Well,
the brewery's out, but I still got some in my brewery.
You got some stored up in the basement?
Yeah.
Well, save one for me. We'll have to crack one sometime.
Will do.
All right, man. Well,
Have a
good
good
luck
one.
this weekend.
Yep.
All right. See ya.
See ya.